Hi, it's Colin Coward. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
I was thinking about it today after Joe Burrow's performance. You know, star players and the truly great players define franchises. They define coaches. They kind of define our fandom. And every team gets so lucky. Sometimes a guy falls into their lap. Sometimes they have like the forward-thinking approach. And every once in a while, you just get gifted a guy that's an automatic home run. Like, think about the Chiefs, right? Patrick Mahomes, who's one of the great players we've ever seen in the sport, took the sport by storm, MVP, Super Bowl champion. He got to sit a year. And by no means was he viewed, like, a lot of people didn't even think he was a first-round pick. So when the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, it was like a big picture thing, right? He didn't even play his rookie year beside week 17, which was at the time the 16th game of the season against the Denver Broncos. And they had a playoff game the following week. He didn't play. Alex Smith did, right? And I was thinking about it, watching Joe Burrow just eviscerate the Chiefs secondary with Jamar Chase. It's rare that like number one overall picks are truly ready to hit the ground running. Like Peyton Manning, it took some time. Like Shaquille O'Neal, ready to roll. Orlando Magic, immediately transformed. Ken Griffey Jr., next year, he's in the big leagues, all-time great, and is, 20 years old. It's really rare the number one overall pick, Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, like Joe Burrow. I was watching a bunch of Madden content on the YouTube, it's a little website that's owned by Google, and he was talking about, and John, I think, was a big part when he was announcing games, talking about guys that had it. And, I think the analytic people always push back. Like, what does that even mean? Well, I think you kind of know it when you see it. Like Steph Curry has it, right? Tiger Woods had it. Tom Brady clearly has it. This kid for Cincinnati, we saw it at LSU, but you never truly know in college. Tua was really good in college. This guy, looking back, his collegiate offense, he had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Clyde, who was coming on before he got injured. So you went, well, is he really going to be this good? Even though it was hard to not watch him at LSU and love him and thinking this guy is a stud, I would take him number one overall pick. I think we all agreed, for the most part, consensus number one overall pick. Then he gets there, and he's like better than advertised. It was clear last year, remember, on a Thursday night game against the Browns, you're like, holy shit, this kid can play. But then he gets injured. And anytime you get injured early in your career when you're on a bad team, you just never know. He pounded the table for Jamar Chase. And I'm not a huge believer, and maybe it's just, the scout in me to like really listen that much to young players. Of course they're going to want their friends. He was right. Jamar Chase is freaking unbelievable. He has 13 touchdowns this year. 13. What those two guys were doing today, I mean, it was like Stockton and Malone 20 years into their career. Montana and Rice in 1989. Like, it shouldn't be that easy year one. Now, I know they played together in college, but still, this is the Kansas City Chiefs, teams that won the AFC 2 years in a row, clearly one of the best teams over the last 3 years like we've ever seen in a 3-year run. They're a powerhouse, and their defense had been playing really well. And early on in that game, I'm glad I didn't tweet it. I'm like, you know what? Because I knew this. I knew the Chiefs were a little offended, and they would never admit this publicly, but like if you watch television this week, and I really don't, but the NFL Network, ESPN, a lot of people were picking the Bengals. And even I thought, some people forwarded me some stuff. I'm like, this is kind of crazy. I saw it on the social media streets. I'm like, let's pump the brakes a little bit on the Bengals. They're not going to beat the Chiefs. And then early on in that game, I look up, and it's like 21-7. I'm like, oh, this blowout city. But when you have, quote-unquote, it, when you just got, like, you're going to be an all-time great player, because if Joe Burrow stays healthy, he's going to be an all-time great player. Like, that's not an opinion. I mean, that's just, he plays, he kicks ass, and he takes names. And they have sweet wide receivers for him. Sometimes you get a young quarterback, it's like they don't have the weapons. Well, they got Chase, they got Higgins, they got Mixon, the tight end, 87 is pretty good. Like, they can play. And he resurrected a franchise that was a joke. Obviously, they had success. And I know Bengals fans get kind of mad that they get lumped in with, like, the Lions and the Raiders. Over the last 20 years, the Carson Palmer teams, then the Andy Dalton teams, like, they've gone to the playoffs a lot. But that transition of when they moved on from Dalton to what they became, the reason they got Burrow, they had the number 1 overall pick. And when Burrow got hurt, like, you just watched him, it felt like a franchise going nowhere. But it was clear early on that, like, the franchise, when you watch that team play early this season, like, they kind of believed. They played well. I'm not even talking Joe Burrow. I'm just talking the whole team. Like, their defense flew around. And to be right now, have 10 wins, to beat the Chiefs at home, and to win the division, that's incredible. It is an absolutely incredible accomplishment. I said this before the Rose Bowl. Regardless, win or lose, Utah being in the Rose Bowl is insane. If you would have told any human being, besides like Joe Burrow's family or some LSU fans, that the Cincinnati Bengals were going to make the playoffs, let alone win the division over the Browns and the Ravens, if I would have gone on this podcast and said that, you would have thought I was high on drugs. I saw Chad Johnson retweeted that he said that on First Take like over the summer. But it was like he was biased. He was just saying that. He wasn't going to be right until he was right. Until Joe Burrow turned into an absolute flat-out superstar. Jamar Chase, I'm sure, shattering rookie records. I bet Randy Moss might have a few more touchdowns as a rookie. I have to go back and look. I mean, he's got 13 this year. It's remarkable to watch. It's why I love sports. Because I love the great players. Like, I watch sports for Peyton Manning, for Ken Griffey Jr., for Shaquille O'Neal, for Mahomes and Joe Burrow. I don't watch it for Sean Mannion. I turn off the television. I got too much other things to do in my life when I really don't even have that much other things to do in my life. I just don't like watching average to below average players. I hated it when I scouted. Now I refuse to do it. And a game like today was a full-on treat. To see those guys, to see that individual playing that well, to do it against that level of competition, it was remarkable. Now, listen, I know people are bitching and moaning about the referees. I don't know, man. Like, this guy deserved it. Last week, I thought the overreaction against a JV secondary in Baltimore was a little over the top. But then to come back, and listen, Spagnuolo's calling the, full-on putting guys in man-to-man situations outside against Jamar Chase. Like, that's on the coach. But Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are taking advantage of it. Their rapport and connection, like, I think sometimes that rapport and connection clearly comes work ethic in practice. But a small percentage of people, most guys at the highest level, work hard in practice. Work hard to develop a rapport. But you can't make up what Stockton and Malone had. You can't make up what Steph Curry and Klay Thompson had. You can't make up what Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison had. Some duos are just, what Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes have. Sometimes you just got it. And these two guys, they got it. What a remarkable win by the Bengals. I mean, what a remarkable season. Whether they win a playoff game, whether they get blown out in the playoffs, I don't give a shit. Just absolute hat tip to them. Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description. And make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.